Our first guest here is going to be our resident artist for the Prairie Festival. We have this value at the Land Institute we call whole science. And we're a scientific organization, but we don't like to forget about the arts and philosophy and the wholeness that informs the science that we do. And so let there be art. And Erin's art is inspired by and co-created by the Prairie, and this is the Prairie Festival. So this is just all kinds of perfect. I welcome to the stage to talk about what they've produced for this festival, Miss Erin Wiersma. Thank you.
Good morning. Hey, it is absolutely wonderful to be here today, and the weather could not be more perfect. And it's just so good to be meeting here again in the big barn. I'm delighted to be the land artist this year and showing with Preeti and Wes in the Red Barn. This morning I'd like to share a little bit about myself, about the artwork, including my exhibition, which I'm calling Evolve and Become. But before I launch into that, I just want to take a moment and share some gratitude. I'd like to first express gratitude for my colleagues at Kansas State University for their ongoing support. I'd like to thank Emily Ryan for being an incredible host here at the Land, as well as Wes Jackson, without whom none of us would be here. And to everyone who's had a hand getting the work prepared, including Carla Pritchett. Bill and Corey North, who are concurrently showing my work at the Clara Hatton Center and Sanzen Gallery, located in Lindsborg, Kansas, just a short 20 minutes drive away from here, 19 if you're looking at Google Maps. And on Sunday from 1 to 4, as in tomorrow, the galleries will be open, and we really hope to see you there if you're able to stop by. When I was first invited to be a land artist, I began to think about which of my Konza Prairie drawings to show. These drawings are created directly in the prairie, immediately after or months following a prescribed fire, and the land itself is making the marks onto the paper. In the end, I decided to share a selection of my most recent drawings from 2022, from the prescribed burning season. In addition to the drawings, I'm also sharing scientific research in the form of a reading room. So I'd like to share a little bit about the reading room. The goal of this reading room is to show the connections of different perspectives and times within Konza Prairie. The reading room is a sampling of research recognizing others who studied and worked on the prairie, including but not limited to, Katie Kingery Page's ethnographic interviews with grassland ecologists, doctoral candidate K.T. Silber, who compiled lab reports from the Division of Biology at Kansas State University, John Blair, director of Konza Prairie Biological Station, and Jesse Nippert, who oversees the National Science Foundation LTR program at Konza Prairie. Each have offered personal materials from their bookshelves. The Konza Prairie and my art practice wouldn't exist without the vision of scholars in the 1970s and continued curiosity and interest of researchers in many fields. Throughout the weekend, we invite you to explore the articles, interviews, books, letters from the 1970s when the Konza Prairie was in its early stages, and maps within the reading room, and to engage in a new prairie place. Now on to the artwork. Okay, so I am new to the Flint Hills, not anymore, but I was over 10 years ago. And I came to Kansas due to the university, and I immediately had an appreciation for this ecoregion and knew it was different. I hadn't come this far west. Well, I went further west, but never really stopped in the Great Plains as an adult or as a child. And soon I became mesmerized, interested, curious what the heck is happening with these prescribed fires in ecology. When you see fire in New Jersey, it's not a good thing. And now looking back, around the time I was trying to get rooted in this new place, this work had emerged. I work directly in the land. I use paper, which I drag, I push, I pull across that landscape. And the work is directed by the land itself, literally, and the wind. When I'm using large-scale paper, I tend to pull that paper up into the air and shift that paper around, sometimes by choice and sometimes, most of the time, by necessity. It's pretty windy out there. And the geography. I tend to find myself, when I'm making these large-scale works, finding myself into places of shelter. So if you have a chance to take a look at the catalog I brought with me today that's in the bookstore, and we'll be doing a signing today with Wes, I don't know where he is, please visit us. You'll see there's an inclusion of a few images of these processes that I bring to the land. So with this large-scale paper, I tend to start high on the prairie and descend down into these draws, these arroyos, finding shelter from the wind. And so the wind itself and that geology, our geography, it's leading the work. Get some water. So when I'm in a land, I'm an artist, and mark making is important to my overarching work. And I see the land as a mark making tool in itself. And I'm almost this facilitator walking out into the prairie, experiencing it. So the prairie becomes the subject of the work and also the medium. So on the surface of the paper, it becomes this rich record of the land itself, whether it be the biochar or the growing plants or the soil or the pollen, depending on what season I'm there. And the work has continued to evolve. I spoke a little bit about this large-scale paper, but over time I wanted to go out when it was windy. And so just that curiosity of, can I work when it's windy, or can I work all seasons of the year, really drove the evolution of different apparatuses. A wheel that I bring out to land where I drag or push it. So what happens in the land when I'm there? That's kind of the logistics I'm talking about, the walking, and the paper records this direct experience, but I'm entering an immersive experience. And what happens is that my whole body is getting attuned to this place, and I see differently, I hear differently, I feel differently. And I'm not feeling with my hands are on the paper mostly, or on this apparatus, but I'm feeling with my feet. And it's in this space where I come to know not only through senses of where I'm at in that moment, but I get to step back in time. And I get to know the earth. And so quotes like from Aldo Leopold start to resonate and make sense. He speaks about spiritual dangers. And I'm completely in danger, not in the land, but in most of life. And I'll read this one quote for you. There's 2 spiritual dangers in not owning a farm. One is the danger supposing that breakfast comes from the grocery. And the other is that heat comes from the furnace. And you know, when I'm in that space making this work, I know exactly where my food is coming from. And I know, and I envision deep down below my feet, the land itself and those roots, those tall grass prairie roots that are going through that rock bed, and I get a sense of where I'm at. And I get a sense of this time as well. Something magical happens, I guess, for me. When that land gets cleared with that fire, that thing that destroys but also is going to rejuvenate those grasses, all of a sudden, I envision a seaway that is dividing the continent in two, and I get even a glimpse of my home, the Atlantic Ocean, of that beautiful ocean space, and I can sense and I imagine this place that used to be the ocean or a sea, and my ears are hearing this rock shelf underneath my feet, which sound like seashells. So, I went into the land really out of a curiosity and appreciation for the land, but I wanted to know it. I wanted to know the land, and you know, like any research project, you know, you have an interest, you go into it, and you figure out what's actually happening. In working at Konza, I didn't know how long I'd be there for, and this was a concern for me, and this concern kind of, I wanted to know the answer. How long would I be here studying the land? And when I passed through that first year cycle of grasses, I started to understand that this was a much long-term project, and I started to understand the role of arts and science on a deeper level as I was actually doing it. I realized when we were burning, in addition to making these works, on really windy days when I can't bring my paper out of there, I joined a burn crew. So I get to study fire from a different vantage point, not just out there making the work. And I have this clear memory, and it happens every year, when there's a watershed that I know that place, but I forget its name, I forget its coding. There's 50 watersheds at Konza, or more than 50 watersheds, and they're studying the effects of fire. What happens when you burn every year in the spring, the time that everyone wants to burn, versus what happens when you burn in fall, winter, or summer even. And so we were burning a 1-year watershed, and we skipped over to a 2-year burn, and I was just upset. I realized I waited 3 minutes left. I had waited all this time to see this place, and all of a sudden I had to wait another 365 days. And so as an artist, I also see myself very much engaging with the scientist research. So much so that I've gone ahead and renamed all my work in the second year. One out of necessity. I was really confused what I was looking at. The naming system didn't make sense. But I decided to call the works transects, and thinking of that study of a space. And I know it's not a direct match for meaning, but I'm studying these different watersheds, or watersheds different time. And so over time, I've learned plant compositions, not by their scientific names, but how they feel, how they look, how they're grouped together. I've learned. I see. I'm using this mark-making language, and I see the plants as mark-making devices, and I can look back at these drawings that I've archived, and I can say, I think I was there, based on the soil types or the plants I'm looking at. And so this learning that I'm engaged with is very pre-verbal. And the prairie is my teacher. And so again, I'm learning with my whole body. It's 2 minutes. I'm learning with my whole body. I'm learning with sound. I'm learning how the grasses sound against my heavy, thick canvas pants as I brush along. I learn the plants based on what they look like in different times of the year. I look back at my titles doing this long-term work, and I identify with days of the year. My work is titled Transect, the year, the day of the year, the place, and a memory. And now I'm engaging in this activity of remembering the prairie as it has revealed itself to me. So on the 100th day of the year, early in the morning, the frogs, you'll find them down in a 3-year watershed. And so I look to return in 3 years from now to hear those frogs again. And those kind of memories that keep me going to the land. Cool. Thank you.